As an organization leader, what steps have you taken to address gender pay equity or inequity?
So, within the nonprofit organization, the Connecticut Women's Consortium, I have worked to ensure, since I've been there, that each year there's the opportunity for the staff to get a cost of living raise. We don't receive funding necessarily to provide that, so we have to actually, add to our work and what our revenue is that we bring in to do that. But we've given cost of living raises, and then we give performance incentive raises. And those are based on people exceeding the expectation in their performance appraisals each year, and annually, if they exceed their our expectation, they get another additional increase. And I was able to work with the board of directors to set up in the budget a bonus pool of money, which at my discretion I can use to give bonuses to the folks who actually exceed expectation in the organization. So that's what I've done in a nonprofit that had existed before I got there, and folks hadn't seen a raise in 5 years. So I felt that it was beneficial to put these pieces in place, and people have regularly been benefiting from them.
How have the opportunity disparities between white women, women of color, and white men impacted your approach to leadership?
I'd have to say, when I was reflecting on this, that most of my mentoring, so I've been a big mentor over the years, and I tend to take women who are interested in figuring out what they want to do with their careers and provide them with some opportunities to just talk about what a career ladder looks like and how you go about doing that, helping them to figure out where they want to go. I've worked for the state of Connecticut, which had, a structured tiers of different positions. And sometimes it could be overwhelming for the staff to decide where they want to head in their careers. And having gone through those series of jobs in my career, I was able to talk with folks about career opportunities, how to do an analysis of their job, how to submit for upgrades in their positions. So staff often came to me to work through how to do those things. So it's different in the private nonprofit as opposed to the state, but I've always felt like I've taken some women under my wing and helped to mentor them, and they keep in touch over the years. So I will get a call from somebody down in Stamford who I might have mentored when she was in Danbury and Waterbury, and so people stay in touch, which has been a nice way to help young women move along in their careers. That's something I've done.
It is well documented that COVID has set women back professionally. What steps do you think should be taken to support working women?
One of the things that is the major barrier through all of this, I believe, has been the whole closing of all the daycares and the cost of daycare. So for women, young women with children, they've been severely impacted in loss of daycare. And that's fine for somebody who has a position where they're able to work remote, but that still puts an awful lot of pressure on caring for children while doing, a full-time job in the home. And then the people who are in those lower jobs, who are working in, say, grocery stores and places where they don't have adequate daycare open and available, is been a big concern. And I always felt like it seems unfair, especially to single women, because there are more single women out there than there are single women raising children than there are single men raising children. And I don't know that that's taken into consideration in terms of, the cost of daycare and the ability to have good quality for their children while they're employed.
What advice would you give to a young woman starting a career in a nonprofit?
Well, one thing about a nonprofit is that, the salary ranges are not the same as they'd be working for the government or working in a larger organization. So nonprofits tend to pay less. So my advice would be that people do career planning. So if they take these positions and they come into an organization, they set some personal and professional goals for where they see themselves. That's something that I learned when I was in graduate school. I had a professor in an administration course. It was Women in Leadership graduate course. And at that point, she just really impressed upon me the importance of setting a short-term and long-term goal in my career. And I've done it my entire career. So what I would do is as soon as I moved into a new job, I would start to think about, where do I see myself in 2 years? And where do I see myself in 5 years? And I would adjust my resume, and I would have my resume have that objective put on it right as soon as I as soon as I make the next step adjustment to my career plan. And so that's what I advise young people to do, is to not go into something and not know what they want to do next. So once you're there, making a plan and updating that plan as you get to the steps.
Are there any differences between now and the start of your career that give you hope for a more equitable future?
I believe so. I believe I see more women in leadership roles. So when I remember at one point being at an agency down in New Haven, and knowing that to move into management was going to be a real difficult thing, because when I looked at anybody who was in management, they were in a different kind of a job classification, and women weren't able to get in. I used to joke around and say that it wasn't a glass ceiling in that organization. It was saran wrap, and it kept stretching. So women just couldn't get into those top tier positions. That's changed over the years. I see many more women leaders in organizations, young women leaders. I also see young women who are interested in politics, running for office, and really proud to work with some of them who have worked at nonprofits and learned how to speak really well and do their work, and ultimately run for office. So we're seeing more of that. So I do see women in leadership changing and being more opportunities.
And finally, who are some women who inspire you professionally?
This is a really cool question. So I immediately, my first, so I always do things like how it pops into my head. So my first thing that popped in my head was Susan Bicewicz, being the lieutenant governor and how she's organized the women's committees within her administration. I think she's doing a really good job. So she was the first person I thought of. The second person I put down, who I just admire like heck, is Oprah Winfrey. So I had to put Oprah, the person who we hope to one day get to open a conference for the Connecticut Women's Consortium, which would be really, really cool. So Oprah, if you're out there. And then I thought about women leaders in Connecticut, and I thought about two governors. We've had two female governors. In 1975 to 80, we had Ella Grasso, and Ella Grasso was governor in Connecticut as I was graduating from undergraduate school. So to see a woman in that role, I think, was a really good role model, to know that people in Connecticut could come out of school and aspire to something like that. And then as I ended my career within the state, as I was getting, towards the end of my career, as I was a superintendent or a CEO of a big facility, Jody Rell was governor, and Jody Rell was governor from 2004 to 2011. So I admire the fact that, I had two opportunities, that young in my career and older in my career. So, but I think we need to fill the voids. I don't think we need to have those huge gaps. It would be nice to see more women in those lead roles. And the last person I put down, who I just admire, and I use in my trainings, I've never met her, but I do admire her, is Nadine Burke Harris. So for those of you who don't know who she is, she's a Surgeon General in the state of California, and she has a couple TED Talks and she's in the Resilience film that we're screening right this week, where she realized as a physician how important ACEs were, and how it affected children and adolescents and all the way into their adulthood. So I admire her work, and that she brought that to a national platform.